In South Africa, corruption, nepotism, and interference in the day-to-day runnings of government departments by political principals has brought into sharp focus the country's perceived inability to build a capable state that is able to meet service delivery needs. However, the Department of Public Service and Administration, which is charged with helping other government departments function better, has to deal with endemic corruption, thousands of public servants doing business with the state, and a failure to discipline errant public servants who are placed on suspension at the cost of taxpayers. Can Minister Senzo Mchunu turn things around in the public service? Well, the Minister will be delivering the keynote address in today's commemoration and in fact joins us now via our video link to discuss this further. Minister, thanks very much for your time and welcome to the program. So, Corruption Watch in a recent report has described our situation as being a result of discord, a lack of coordination and poor planning. Those aren't things you'd expect from an experienced government that's been in power for over 2 decades. What's your response to their reading of the situation?
Not at all. Government is very coordinated in its efforts to fight corruption in South Africa. One, we have just recently, at the end of November, towards the end of November, adopted the anti-corruption strategy that has been spoken about for quite some time. But this time around, we tighten our efforts and Cabinet has adopted it. And now, at the beginning of the year, we're rolling it out. 2, we are a signatory to several conventions under the auspices of the United Nations, wherein we're showing our commitment, and we submit reports regularly. And the last one was now in October to the working group of the anti-bribery convention. And we are recognized as South Africa that indeed, after a struggle a little bit in the past years, but we're now on it. But of course, internally, the commissions that we have, like the Zondo Commission, like the work of the SIU, the Hawks, and all other, including NPA, these are very coordinated structures. We can only improve on them, but it's there for everyone to see that the country is really gathering its strength and commitment to fight corruption in South Africa.
All right. Minister, you described the developments in the past few years as a little bit of a struggle. I would beg to differ, and that's just putting it mildly. We've heard even just this week alone of widespread corruption amounting to billions and billions of rand. The signatories might be there, the laws might be there. I'll even be as generous as saying the laws might even be good laws that are sound, but the implementation, because of what looks like a lack of political will, leaves a lot to be desired.
Not this time around. I can say so with confidence, right from the head of state, President Cyril Ramaphosa, and to heads of provinces, and that is premiers and ministers. There is actually a lot of activity in terms of the fight against corruption. But maybe I need to concede that if you look at the past, like the 2018, 2019 audit reports, we had several disclaimers, which indeed is very bad. 7 provincial departments got disclaimers, and I think about 4 national departments got disclaimers. Now we are saying a disclaimer is a disaster. It's just a show of corruption to everybody. You don't need to talk to anybody, because it means that if the auditor comes to the department, he finds nothing to use to base his opinion or her opinion on. And it's totally unacceptable. In fact, those people become an immediate, in this administration, an immediate target for investigation. You see, the issue of corruption, the main thing about it is not to say that it doesn't exist and so on. Your main worry should be making an effort and demonstrating your efforts to fight it, so that there would be corrupt people, particularly in the public sector. They just know that no sooner have they done whatever, the law will pursue them and pursue them to the end.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that we're quite delighted with the state of affairs at the moment in terms of efforts and demonstration to everybody that time for corruption is gone.
All right. Well, Minister, many people will say we've heard that before, but let's hone in on some of those efforts. In October, you made a call to public servants to enroll in the public servants. Yeah, it was called the Public Service Course, or Ethics in the Public Service Course, and this was meant to be administered through the National School of Governance. How many people have actually taken up that offer? And from that, do you feel you were taken seriously?
Yes, we have deliberately decided that the National School of Government in South Africa should spearhead ethics, because it starts with the individual. So it's not about just the laws that are out there and ministers and whoever saying don't be corrupt, and then people comply, fearing whatever. But this is an ethical issue which begins with an individual, and therefore we may as well say go for training. We may as well say let ethics be internalized almost right from the beginning by our public servants. So you realize that there are several courses now that are compulsory for public servants, especially those who are SMS, because that is senior management, who occupy senior management positions, because those are the ones that carry bigger responsibility in terms of ensuring that resources of the state are looked after. But
yeah, Minister, I hear that.
I would say that.
Sorry for disrupting, but my question is, how many people from your call have now enrolled in this particular course?
Yes, I was just about to get into that, to say we have about just around 10,000 at the moment, and that corresponds with the number of senior public servants, that is SMS members, that is manager upwards, right up to level 16, from level 14 to 16. They are just about 10,000, and that is what that's the number that is enrolled.
And I'm sure you'll agree with me that 10,000 is a far cry from the 1.3 odd 1.2 million public servants in the country, because you and I both know that the corruption doesn't just take place in the upper echelons of government. There are moments, even in local government elections, at grassroots level, so to speak, where there's some serious life-changing maladministration taking place there. So when you compare 10,000 to 1.2 million scope, you have to concede that we're still a long way from, at least at the level of perception, giving South Africans an idea that you as minister calling for some kind of ethical reckoning are actually being taken seriously.
Yeah, but what holds the balance is that this takes in all accounting officers at national level, all of them. They are part of this 10,000. And all DDGs are part of this 10,000. I mean, in number. And all of these chief directors are part, and directors. Now, if you, yes, the number is small for now compared to 1.2 million, but in terms of decision making, echelons of departments, that takes in that is quite substantial.
All right. Before we run out of time, in September, you also told Parliament that about 85 million rand had been spent in the form of salaries for public servants who had actually been on suspension. Part of the reason for this is because government departments are simply not being able to wrap up the disciplinary processes against these employees in time. it's costing
Yes.
taxpayers money that
Yes.
we simply don't have. What are we doing to hold those governments or those departments accountable?
Apart from writing and sending circulars into about management, the need to efficiently manage disciplinary hearings, what we have done, one, we have appointed a unit. We now have a chief director and a few directors that are a unit that is focusing on ethics and disciplinary cases in South Africa, in terms of making sure that we comply with time frames for suspensions and time frames for hearings. Time frames for suspension is just 60 days, within which you must have wrapped it up, and then hearings. And that is called DAO. But over and above that, I've held meetings with different ministers and different provinces where there is tendency of lack of efficiency in terms of our standards. And we are going to round them off, all premiers where these things are occurring, and all departments where these things are occurring. All in all, we are aiming at zero tolerance in terms of inefficiency as far as suspension, because we realize that some departments and some EAs, that is executive authorities, they just suspend people with no clue in terms of when are you going to touch, when are you going to start hearings, who is going to preside, who is going to do that. And now we are cleaning the whole of that area of our work, so that we comply with prescripts of the sixth administration, which is just clean governance.
Yeah.
And that is what we're headed for.
Minister, I'm awfully out of time. In 20 seconds, we had put out a call to our viewers to send through questions that they'd like us to pose to you. One from Setu is asking, where did the idea of giving public servants a bonus as opposed to the long agreed to wage increment come from? We understand this was, of course, agreed to in some gathering, and we're just hoping to get an idea of the amount of buy-in and where that idea actually came from. Very quickly, if you can.
The idea to pay public servants bonuses.
Correct, as opposed to sticking to that increment agreement, which was signed at a bargaining council a few years ago.
Of course, bonuses are part of operating agreements in the PSCPC. But over time, the state has a feeling that it is something that we may need to review, but of course via the PSCPC. But 2 years ago or so, there was an initiative to start winding up bonuses because it was felt, and it's something that we still have to discuss formally, by the way, but it was felt at that time that we may be just paying bonuses willy-nilly without any value and without anything to demonstrate that indeed so and so does desire or does warrant to get a bonus. It was just there and so on, and it doesn't augur well for good governance. And but it's something that we may going forward table officially in terms of a review.
Okay.
But at the moment, that is on a decline. That is payment of bonuses.
All right, fair enough. I don't think perhaps my question was well articulated, but let's leave it there because sadly we've run out of time. Thanks for your time, for coming and helping us clarify some of these issues, really pressing questions that are still outstanding, but at times sadly not on our side. Senzo Mchunu is the Public Service and Administration Minister.